All right, good morning.
Good
We
morning.
are recording. Hi, Kelly.
Hello, hello. Good morning.
Hi, everybody. I wanted to introduce you to one of the parents of a few of the clients that I've had with the STTP Training Center. And our purpose for bringing Kelley on camera, we have a few different purposes today. The first is her family was our very first online STTP clients, plural. And that actually happened kind of organically as I was working with the kids. And we felt like maybe because of our location, our proximity, and the weather, we were having some inclement weather. And we thought, hey, I've done a lot of online training, and we had the online program, but we hadn't done actual live therapy online with kiddos. And so Kelley was really open, and I said, would you be willing to be a guinea pig? And she said, absolutely. And let's give it a try, right? What's it gonna hurt? And so we had a lot of data on how long it takes to go through the STTP and the effectiveness of it in a real life, hands-on, skilled clinician delivery, but we weren't really sure how it was going to go with online. And so in this situation, Kelley had 3 kids that were actually 2 at the time.
We worked with 2 at a time.
Yeah, so we had 2, and they were, 14 and...
3, I had 10, 8, 10, and 12 at that time.
Okay, so 10 and 12-year-olds who were pretty comfortable in front of a computer, as most 10 and 12-year-olds are. And so we decided to give it a go. And it turned out splendidly. And so as a result, she was the first, but we've had many, many, many online. And that is primarily how I deliver the STTP now, is because we don't have the location limitations. We don't have the weather limitations, and both Kelley and I were talking before we came on camera that we've been sick this week. So I have a bit of a man voice and a nasty cough when I talk, so I'm going to let Kelley talk. But some of those things we don't have to worry about because we're online. And so we're doing this interview today in the same fashion that we did the therapy. So it's live and interactive, exactly like this. It is not for everyone, but I just thought that we would share our experience and have Kelley explain from a parent's perspective, because I think the parent's perspective is a little different than the clinician. And what some of the things were that she felt like were a benefit, both using, obviously this is the only tongue thrust protocol or the only tongue thrust intervention method she's familiar with, but her experience in our program as well as in the online delivery method. So Kelley, would you mind sharing your experience?
Absolutely. So we did have 3 children that did the STTP program. At that time, they were ages 8, 10, and 12, and we decided we were only going to do 2 at a time, probably more for my sake than anything, because managing 3 of them would have been pretty crazy. So that worked out really well. Our oldest son was the one that had the most severe tongue thrust. So I do have a little experience, parental experience, working with this program. But overall, I found it very doable. And to be honest with you, Kelley, I really wasn't even quite sure what to expect in the beginning. I didn't even really know what tongue thrust was. And the other thing, I really didn't even realize how weak my children's tongues were until they actually started the program. So it was what I found overall is that the program is very systematic, which for me works really well. I'm a very practical, systematic person, and so it was very easy for me to just, Kelley, you do this, the kids do this, and we move to this. And I am a homeschooling mom, and so it is very important for mastery for me, and that seemed to just fit along with this. The kids don't move on until they've mastered what they had to do. And so that was really it just fit into our schedule and the way our family works in that way really well. I would say that the process that we had through the STTP program and the work that the kids put in, because that really is critical to all this, that we really it did produce noticeable changes even early on. I found that the homework assignments that were given, they weren't overwhelming, yet they challenged the kids, and it really continued to push them and move them forward. As far as like my role as a parent, I was just making sure that the kids were diligent in their weekly assignments and that they were doing them correctly. That I over the years developed an ear for what should or should not be. And I remember even having conversations with you where I'd be calling them like, oh, this doesn't sound right. And you're like, you're right on. So that was helpful for me just to be participating in that way, just having that set of ears, because literally, especially my oldest, could not hear a difference in when he would do something correctly or incorrectly. He did not differentiate between those differences. So that especially for my oldest played a big role in my part in that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and he was a little bit of a different case just because of the severity, the involvement. After we finished up with the tongue thrust protocol, we went into some articulation stuff. So we've continued to do things beyond the tongue thrust program, but it was definitely a great family to work with, and your involvement and your willingness to be open and learn and to participate. So talk a little bit about the online. What do you think about the online format? How did that factor in? And do you feel like, because you were unique in that you got to see it with me across the kitchen table, actually in your kitchen, and grabbing the different foods and the different trials and moving them through, to me being across the valley on a camera. And how was that different? Did you feel like it changed the dynamics, or did we just kind of keep on going?
Yeah, I would even say we did have that opportunity where you were really hands-on in the first, maybe even just my first. And I think the other two, you literally did over the internet, on the online, and it was seamless. I don't know that there was a difference. You were able to see what you needed to see and assess what you need to assess. From my perspective, I would say it was extremely beneficial. Life is full. It is, just for all of us, and I am no exception to that. And really trying to find time in my week to make 2 appointments for the kids. This online program just really simplified, the format just really simplified my life. Literally, I could be doing something like preparing for dinner or folding laundry and still be in the same room and hear what was going on during the session. And still be able to be involved in what was going on, and yet still being productive without having to leave my house.
Right, great. Anything that you would recommend to parents, or anything that you would maybe want to add about someone who's maybe wondering if tongue thrust elimination is necessary? We already kind of talked about the online really is about the same as being across the table. But is there anything that you'd want to share with parents from a parent's perspective?
Well, first, I also didn't mention that the fact that we did have all 3 kiddos needing therapy, providing the online option really made it affordable for us. I'm not sure how we would have been able to manage, just on the affordability side of being able to pay for all 3 kids going through the tongue thrust. So that's a good point. I forgot about that, but that is an important part of making it accessible to the financial affordability for families. So that was great. So sorry, I forgot that point.
No, I think that's a good point.
As far as the effectiveness and recommending it, I really found the online therapy very effective. All 3 of my kiddos do not have tongue thrust anymore. All of them are understood when they speak. All are confident in their speech. And I would absolutely recommend the STTP online therapy to parents or individuals. It really just gives you the flexibility with the results with the online therapy. So I feel like we had kind of the best of both worlds. I didn't have to leave my house. I didn't have to interrupt too much of a schedule. And yet we ended up with fabulous results. So I think it's a win-win.
Great. And that was kind of, like I said, when we first started this process, we weren't sure how it was going to turn out. And in the end, I think we've all benefited and found that it is very effective and very efficient. It's much more time efficient. It's much more financially doable because we can do more with less, literally. You don't have to drive into a clinic, and we don't have to drive over to where you are. So thank you. I really appreciate your time and your perspective that is unique to you as a parent and as a parent of more than one child.
Yeah, I do have other things to share. Can I just share about maybe those that might be considering or wondering?
Absolutely.
Necessary. I really believe that the tongue thrust elimination is necessary. It's very necessary. What my oldest son found is that while he is very intelligent, and when he was speaking with others, there was difficulty in understanding him. And this often led to conclusions of him not being very smart because of his articulation. And so when we would be able to eliminate the tongue thrust, it's really given him so much more self-esteem. He's 14 now. And so these are kind of tough years between 12 and 14. And he has confidence when he's speaking in front of people. He's no longer embarrassed by having to repeat himself so often. So I really definitely feel like it is a necessity for these kids that are struggling that. And I found even too, Kelley, beyond the articulation correction, is that having their tongues in the correct position is making a big difference in the formation of their jaws.
Yep.
And so therefore their teeth and their bite is really, I'm seeing huge differences. It's the tongue really has a purpose beyond just helping us speak correctly. It plays a big part in that formation of our mouths and how all that works together. And I am in all three of them, I am seeing this difference as well. So that was a really, I just feel like that's just a necessity that is just important for all of us who have kiddos that are struggling in that area. The other thing I would, if I could just make a recommendation, would be to start younger. We keep talking about my oldest, but it's because he had the most severe issue. And so he had the longest therapy. He had the most challenging time with the therapy. He had wrong tongue placement for so many years and developed really strong habits that took him a lot of work to change. And then we also found that he was going through these growth spurts, like I said, 12 and 14. And that really played a huge role in the therapy together. I mean, some weeks were just like, we didn't feel like we made any progress, and he grew an inch or something. So it just provided its own set of challenges starting later. Where our other two that we started at 8 and 10, really, now granted, they weren't as severe. So, I'm not sure what would happen if we had started our oldest earlier, but they really moved through it much easier, not having to kind of deal with some of these sets of challenges. So I guess that would just be some things I would just encourage people to really consider. And then again, just as far as the online service model, it really worked well for our family, and it just helped simplify our schedules. And again, just yielded great results. All three of my kids speak well. They don't struggle with tongue thrust. Even my oldest now, he still does some exercises here and there, but you would not know that he has a problem before. So
thank you, Kelley. And thank you for bringing that up, because you don't even know this, but most of our kiddos that we treat with tongue thrust don't have an articulation component. It's kind of a misconception. A lot of times people think, oh, my child doesn't have any articulation issues, or it goes undiagnosed because of that. But it is the tongue placement. It is the resting posture. It is the reverse swallow. And those things do affect developmentally. Over the past 20 years that I've been working with tongue thrust, I've actually noticed an evolution. And so it's actually coming out right now. I'm in the process of creating what's called the STTP EIP. So it's an early intervention prevention protocol that we can get out to parents as early as when they transition from breast to plate.
Wow.
And to cup, so that we can actually start working that way beyond earlier than we thought before, to see if we can, some of our things that are happening, and it kind of goes beyond this today, but the whole point of the way that we're holding our mouth when we're drinking in sippy cups and eating out of pouches and all those things. It used to be pacifiers and thumbs. Now we have other things that are contributing to that forward, open, depressed posture. And so you can imagine how difficult it was. There was some structural and some musculature changes in your older child that was different. And that's why it was harder for him than just my average everyday tongue thrust kiddo. But the effects and the benefits were crossed over even in his situation, where he did have kind of the full meal deal. He had all of the things that could be going against him, they were, and he still benefited, and he still was able to reverse that. So thank you for recognizing that it's bigger than just the sounds that we say. It really is about the way the mouth is forming and the jaw is forming. And we know that early intervention is key. In the past, we've really looked at, well, if we're going to teach something like a posterior swallow, they need to be able to understand and change some of those behaviors. So we've waited until they were a little bit older. 8 is generally the age. But you saw how much easier it was with your 8 and 10-year-old. Again, some of that is because it was earlier, and some of it was just because they're different kids. They had different issues. So, but thank you for recognizing that, because it absolutely does affect the development. And it's really exciting to see a parent who recognizes that and sees the effect and says, wow, I wish I would have known earlier. I wish I would have gotten started earlier, because I think it would have maybe been easier. And honestly, wouldn't it be great to be able to completely eliminate the malformations and the orthodontia? It can just, I mean, how affordable is that, right? Orthodontia times 3.
It's very really inexpensive.
Yeah. Orthodontia times 3 is way more expensive than tongue thrust therapy times 3. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Anything else you want to share with the masses?
I just can't be more pleased. I think that having 3 children go through the program, it just gives me a little bit different perspective. It's not just one. I've had 3, and and all 3 have been a little bit different, like you mentioned. And so I kind of had, like you said, way extreme, and the 8-year-old pretty much whizzed through quite a bit of it. And so on either spectrum, I feel like it has just been extremely beneficial, and have fully loved the online format and would highly recommend it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time, Kelley.
Thank you.